Hello, lovelies. Welcome back to another episode of Wedding Wednesday Q&A where we answer your wedding questions. Today's question is from Sarah. Sarah asks, when researching and contacting vendors, for example, photographer, hair and makeup, florist, how do you know when to wait it out for others to respond or when to just book the ones who have responded to you already? I feel like I'm always feeling a bit of a FOMO, whether it's waiting for a better price or a better vendor. Absolutely fair question. It is quite tricky. It gets tricky because sometimes you think about it, is it worth waiting for someone to respond to me because I've really seen their work and I'm a big fan of it? Or do you just move on and work with someone who responded to you right away? I'd say it really depends on your goals and your timeline. I'm sure that before reaching out to the vendors, you know if they're popular or if they're up and coming. There's just many different variables that a wedding vendor might fall into. Timeline or your goals, it really depends on that. If you're getting married in 3 or 4 months, it most likely won't make sense for you to wait for someone to respond to you after 4 or 5 days because really time is of essence here. But if you're getting married, say for example, 8 or 12 months out, you might be able to afford that waiting time depending on how much you really want to work with this vendor. If you've researched that vendor and you really like their work, you're just a big fan, and you feel like they are the best match for you, then I'd say it is worth the wait. However, most vendors, when you reach out to them, they would usually leave a note on how long it takes for them to respond. So when you fill out that form or you send an email, you will usually get an auto reply back saying that the usual response time is maybe 2 to 3 business days. Again, that varies depending on the vendor. This is usually noted on their website as well when you submit your inquiry. Popular vendors that are really busy might take a bit longer to respond, and this is not to be taken personally. A lot of them gets really swamped, and I work with a lot of amazing vendors that usually get swamped, and it might take them longer to respond. It doesn't necessarily mean that they don't care for you, but if in the very beginning they've already mentioned and told you that during the wedding season, it might take a little bit longer to respond, and that's something respectable. And sometimes if in the very beginning, they've already responded to you and laid out what you can expect in terms of communication and you're okay with it, then I'd say that that's fine to wait. But if in the beginning, your initial inquiry, you didn't get any timeline or you don't know what to expect, when to respond, what are the next steps, if you have no idea, that's really tricky for you. And I don't think that's a very comfortable place to be in. If they set clear timelines, so for example, if they've already had an auto reply to tell you that they won't be able to respond until 2 to 3 days out, or maybe this month is very busy for them and then they might respond the next month, that now gives you a better direction on how you wanted to move forward. Is this vendor really worth waiting for? Do you really want to work with this vendor? Is it worth the time and investment? That's for you to answer, of course. But if a vendor is letting you wait for so long without any expectations, any auto reply, or just no communication at all, that might be a sign that it might be something that they will be doing throughout the whole relationship, should you decide to work with them. So it's almost like a sneak peek of how the communication and the customer service might be if you decide to work with them. Of course, you'd want to work with someone that responds to you and your concerns. You're always going to find someone with better pricing. You will find someone who will always charge less. But then again, this is really knowing what's important to you. Of course, there will be some areas of understanding and forgiveness. If something is going to be delayed, professional vendors will usually advise you of it and not just sit around on unanswered emails. So again, the auto reply or at least a heads up, hey, I'm gonna be out of town for this long. However the case may be, if you're given clear communication from the very beginning, that's gonna help you decide if you wanna wait or move forward. Also, a lot of vendors that have bigger teams already have their own customer service team where for the most part, if you have inquiries or you want an update on the products that you've rented or a number of bouquets that you need, number of tables, number of centerpieces, or generic questions that doesn't really involve an opinion or the insight of the main designer, there is usually a team that can help you and respond and be there for you to give you peace of mind and make sure that whatever it is that your concern is, it's addressed and acknowledged. This also depends on how meticulous and how detailed you want things to be. If you are meticulous and looking to receive more details, a lot of explanation, walkthrough, samples, a lot of these things that you just wanted to be involved in the process, that will definitely come with a price. If you want someone that you can pick up the phone and call and ask questions or ask for insights, that usually comes with a price. So if you are looking for that type of service and that type of relationship, and you think that this person, based on your research, based on what other clients have said, based from the reviews, can provide that for you, then it's most likely worth the wait. But if you're easy on the details and not so meticulous, and maybe what you're looking for is something standard in a sense where it doesn't really need a lot of a main designer's insight, and you just want someone that can build something for you, then sure, I would say that you would want to go for the person that responds to you sooner so that you can get it out of the way. Because if someone doesn't respond to you for the most part, that means that you're still going to have a lot of things sitting on your to-do list. You have not moved forward, you have no idea. But if someone responds to you right away, either you want to work with them or you don't, and then you can just get that out of the way. Really, do you want to eliminate the things on your to-do list sooner? Or do you have the time, or are you patient enough to wait for that right person or that dream vendor that you really want to work with? I feel like I'm going back to this point, but it's true that what your priorities are and what you want to feel throughout the whole wedding process, and of course your budget and your maximum spending, those are the things that you can use to decide if you really want to wait on someone to respond to you. Is this person your dream vendor? Like, do you really want them to do your wedding? Of course, there are some things that are worth the wait. I don't think there is a shortage of wedding vendors out there. You will always find one that's best for you. Your wedding vendors isn't just one vendor. There's your photographers, your florist, your videographer, your venue, your wedding planner, your caterer, a lot of those things. And if you determine which ones are your non-negotiables, that's how you can move forward easier. Non-negotiable is, I have to work with this photographer. He is the best. He represents my style. This photographer captured my style perfectly. I won't want to work with anyone else. If that's one of your non-negotiables, then you're going to have to stick to that and give yourself that time and that chance to wait for them to respond to you. But say, for example, if you want to rent a linen, and again, that's a wedding vendor, rentals. If your rentals are not on your non-negotiable list, so say, for example, you just want a blush satin pink round linen, say, for example, that probably requires someone to respond to you right away. That's a pretty standard item that doesn't need any designing, that doesn't need a lot of time. And rental companies should have that catalog ready and that quote ready for you, even online, instantly to send to you. So again, it's a non-negotiable. Whoever responds to you first, get that out of the way. Get it out of the way and feel accomplished and feel like there's not a lot of pending things on your wedding planning list. That's also very important. But for the ones that are non-negotiables for you, I'd say they're definitely worth the wait. Just before we end this episode, I also wanted to point out that just because someone responded to you right away doesn't necessarily mean that what they said and how they responded was really helpful. Right? I mean, someone just say, okay, yeah, cool, I'm going to look into it later. It doesn't necessarily mean that they provided you with the information that you wanted. Sure, you were acknowledged, great. But sometimes if you wait 2-3 days, you get a more detailed response, a more updated proposal, a more updated quote. I think that's more valuable than the back and forth of like, okay, how about this? Okay, how about that? That's a lot of back and forth, and that's not really even an efficient way to communicate. But if a vendor takes 2 to 3 business days to respond to you, but when they respond to you, it is a detailed proposal, it is a lot of information. Like, They prepared something specifically for your needs to help you out and to give you something to think about. It's not this whole back and forth. And so sometimes waiting doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. They're preparing something specifically for you, for your wedding, for your inquiry. And there's a lot to say about that. It's not just, hey, this is how much it's going to cost, or hey, I'm available, this and this and that. And although there are a lot of templates that are automatic, again, the auto replies are there. If you are looking for something very specific in terms of design, of idea, of vision for your wedding, that requires a little bit of time to put together. And, nobody can just throw a number and say, hey, it's going to be about X dollars. As a matter of fact, I think if someone says it's going to be X dollars without really understanding and showing you what that amount that they've told you covers, I think that's harder to believe. And just because they responded right away doesn't mean they're better, doesn't mean they're faster. It just means that at that time they were available to respond. Another thing before we go is once you book a wedding vendor and another one responds and you feel like you've lost out, again, that FOMO that you were mentioning, Sarah, don't be hard on yourself. That is the real situation, and we've heard that many times. What I'd say is, of course, you might feel like you've lost out or I made a wrong decision, but your timeline, your efforts, also important. If you've already set a timeline on when a photographer has to be booked or when a videographer has to be booked, that's your timeline. You're respecting your time. And unfortunately, not everyone can fit that timeline, right? Sometimes we're going to miss them. That's not to say that the other person's better. What I would always say if this happens is that you're going to have to make that decision right for you. So you can look at it in a way where I've followed my timeline. That's important to me. I had the weekend to myself because I wasn't worrying or waiting about someone responding to me. I've saved my time. I've already moved forward. I've already moved on. That's already out of my list. Unfortunately, I can't work with that person, but I've now have a chance to work with a different person. And if you book that person, I'm pretty sure there's something about them that you felt like they were a match for you, not just because they were your dream vendor that you were waiting on, but there's a reason why you booked them. And you have to trust your judgment and you have to trust your gut that it's all going to work out. Nothing is perfect in this world, but sometimes you're just going to have to trust what you've decided on already. You'll always find the right vendor for you. There's no shortage out there. If you want to be patient, you can be patient. If you want to check everything off your list, ASAP, absolutely more power to you. Everything is up to you. It's your wedding. It's your timeline. You're going to have to do what is best for you and what you're most comfortable with. And having said that, that's it for now, lovelies. Don't forget to download your free wedding planning kit below. And as usual, we are here to inspire you to celebrate life and love. Until next time, lovelies. Bye.